Welcome back. I'm Kimberly. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today we're joined by one of our international guests, Ben Baker. Ben came to us as a recommendation from another guest that we talked to earlier in the year, Maura Sweeney. And we're delighted that Maura thought so much of us and of Ben that she made the connection and recommended that we talk to him. We have liaised with Ben and got him to talk to us today. And I will advise you all that one of the things he's going to talk about to us today is personal branding. But let us first of all welcome Ben and welcome to Inside Exec and to talking to us here in Australia.
Ladies, good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Ben, to help our listeners know a little bit more about you and perhaps if you think it's appropriate, your connection with Maura as well. Tell us your story.
What's my story? So for the last 25 years, I've been in marketing and branding. I started off in direct mail. I started off killing a lot of trees.
Okay.
And, we used to do the big catalog direct mails, 250,000, pieces, and went out all over North America. And I really enjoyed that.
Mm.
But, like everything else, things change. And you have to change with the environment or to understand where things go. And, we went into promotional marketing because what we started off with was when we were doing direct mail, people were looking to say, let's put something inside the envelope to give people impetus to open it. And so we started putting pens and notepads and little things inside the envelope that weren't too heavy, but added a little bit of value and gave people saying, why shouldn't I open up this envelope?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we got into trade show development, social media marketing, and all sorts of different things. And what I realized time and time again over the years was I kept going back to people's brands. I kept going back and saying, what are you really trying to say and who are you trying to say it to?
Mm.
And 9 times out of 10, I would get this blank look.
Mm.
And it was, people really were not taking the time to think about what's their brand, what's their strategy, who are they really trying to communicate with, and what do they want to tell them before they start marketing. People just say, well, I need a marketing program, I need a direct mail program, I need to get more clients. But the question is, who are the clients you want?
Mm.
And why are they going to pick you over somebody else? And we end up going backwards 3 steps with most of our clients and getting into the brand and trying to figure out who are they really, what do they have that's valuable, who are they valuable to, and why should these people care?
Yeah, so
and that's what I've been doing for the last number of years, is working on that and that premise of how do you get the value to the right people, the right way, using the right medium. Just getting over a cold, ladies.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah. To me, what it's sounding like is that for us as individuals or for an organisation to determine a personal brand, they've got to take a step before that of looking at who is their ideal client or their ideal customer and identifying that very clearly so that they know that their personal brand is going to match the ideal client.
Well, your brand is who you are as a core.
Mm-hmm.
Your brand is how people view me when I'm not in the room. Jeff Bezos said it right. When people understand that you don't determine your brand, those who you engage with determine your brand for you, you influence it.
Okay.
Right.
But people see you for who they see you. And if you speak one way and you act another, more likely people are going to take you for how you act than what you say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In that sense, we did talk previously to a number of our guests about being congruent. And for us, congruency, we understood that there was a difference in the language barrier a little bit, but for us, congruency means that what you say and what you do are the same thing. And that if you are not congruent, then you run the risk of being frustrated and angry, and you do the blame thrower thing, and you look for all the things that are wrong with the organisation or wrong with your job or wrong with your clients, where it's really more about you and what you're saying, that matching up that saying and doing thing.
And that tends to be the challenge. The work that we do mostly is in 2 camps. One is it's getting people at the leadership level to understand their personal brands and how they can communicate in a way that people want to listen to them, understand the value, and and feel that trust, because it's all about know, like, and trust. If people trust you, they're willing to do business with you, they're willing to listen to you, they're willing to follow you, they're willing to believe in you. If they don't trust you, then they're not willing to do any of the things. And the other part is, we work with a lot of companies to help them engage, retain, and grow their employees. And if employees don't believe in the leaders that are leading them, they're going to go looking elsewhere. And so that's what it's all about. It's all about gaining trust. And that's where things really boil down to.
That leads us into that first question that we sent you, is how early in your corporate career should you identify your own personal brand?
In my career, my personal brand comes down to three things. It comes down to, do people know, like, and trust me?
Yep.
And that's what my brand really is. If I say something, I follow up on it. And that comes down to from when I was a kid.
Yep.
I grew up as my father was an entrepreneur and owned a construction company. And his viewpoint was whatever it takes to make it right for the customer. And I grew up with that.
Yes.
And because I grew up with that, that has always been instilled with me, and that's always been my brand. If I shake your hand and I tell you I'm going to do something, it's done. And if it costs me money, or it costs me reputation, or it costs me whatever, in order to make sure that I do what I promised I said I was going to do, I'm going to do it. And that's always been the cornerstone of my brand.
Ben, how do you help someone head of an organization identify what is that for them? What is their personal brand? How do they want to be seen by the customer?
Now, my book really goes into that. I wrote a book called Powerful Personal Brands, a hands-on guide to understanding yours, and it's a workbook. And at the end of every chapter, the chapters tell stories and give lessons. And at the end of every chapter, I ask a question and leave blank pages for people to write down their questions. And it starts off with things like, what are you passionate about? What do you believe in? Who are the three most important people in your life and why? And they go through those type of questions. And by asking those type of questions, you get a strong sense of what is the hill you're willing to die on? What are the things that are really important to you, and what are the things that aren't? And if we focus on the things that are important to us, that's our brand.
For our listeners, we will put a link to a place where you can purchase the book, so the workbook, so that you can work your way through that as well. I have read, Ben sent us a chapter to give us a bit of a preview of the book, and I have read a chapter, and it is very much a workbook. It really does lead you through thinking about those areas. So for those of you listening who are triggered by this information, I would recommend that you have a look at the book and you work your way through it, because it is the best way for you to start thinking about who you are and what you want as your brand. And you don't need to do anything more than think about it yourself and work through the book.
Yeah, I try to make it as simple as possible and relatable as possible to the greatest amount of people.
Great. The next question we kind of have covered a little bit in terms of being, in the answers that you've talked about already, about being very true to yourself and understanding what you are. But the question we posed to you was, how do you stay true to your personal brand in a cutthroat environment? And how do you protect it in an information age?
Well, there's two parts to that.
Yeah.
How do you stay true to what you are? I think you need to understand for yourself, what are the lines you're not willing to cross? What are the things that are vitally important to you, and what are the things that you're not willing to stand for? I had a client that was a $250,000 a year client that I fired because they broke my moral and ethical code. I mean, that's the perfect example I can do.
It is.
Yeah.
Is that client broke my moral and ethical code. They wanted me to do something that I didn't agree with, and therefore I fired them.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of sleepless nights.
Yes.
But you need to sit there and say, what is your morality worth? What is your ethics worth?
Yeah.
What's your reputation worth?
Yeah.
Because in the end, that's all I've really got. order to take me for who I am, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the book, in the chapter that I read, there's some very good examples of that. In that, yes, you can be uncomfortable for a short period of time, and yes, you had your sleepless nights, but had that work continued, you still would have had sleepless nights because you would have been
Absolutely.
unhappy about the situation that you had allowed yourself to be in to continue. And yes, it's going to be hard and difficult and unpleasant to take the stand, but in the long term, you know, it's a bit like cutting your finger. Yes, it hurts at the time and it takes a little bit of time to heal, but it heals and you still got a finger at the end of it.
Exactly. Now, brand reputation on social media is a different story altogether.
Okay.
I'm a big believer of, if I wouldn't sit there and say something to somebody in front of their face,
Yep.
I won't say it online. If I wouldn't let my grandmother read it, I don't post it online. And I'm also a big believer of digital is forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone will find it somewhere.
Yeah.
No, it's understanding that digital is forever.
Yeah.
And it may not come up and bite you today, it might not come up and bite you a year from now, but 5 years from now it may.
Yes.
So why are you posting something online that whether it be a picture, whether it be a comment, whether it be an attack or whatever, that may come back and hit you when you least expect it?
And it's also about the association as well. So it might not be something that you necessarily post, but it might be something that someone is associated with you puts up or comments on, and by association you cop the flack as well.
Exactly. I've also, like, for instance, there was somebody that I was associated with on social media, and quite honestly, I've got 4,600 contacts on LinkedIn. Yes. And it says, are you connected with such and such? I said, you know what, I don't know. They're a member of our social group. Why? It says, did you hear about what they did? You know, they got this huge racist rant that went all over the internet. I said, really? I said, yeah. And I looked through all my social media things, and sure enough, we were connected on Facebook. And I blocked her.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I need is for them to associate her rant with my company.
Yeah.
You don't want to spoil your reputation by somebody else's action and thoughts.
Exactly.
And so in terms of branding, it is still about, you know, just because you've developed this personal brand, you still have to protect it, like everyone protects their brands.
Yeah.
Well, your brand is who you are. It's not a logo. It's not a font. It's not a color. It's who you are at your core. And it's your reputation, and it's how people perceive you. And if you have anything in the world to protect, that would be the number one thing I'd be protecting.
Because it is who you are.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break in our discussion with Ben Baker. At this point in time, as you can probably hear, Ben is recovering from quite a heavy cold. So we'll take a few moments to let him gather his thoughts and his breath again. Join us for part 2, but for now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne. We're talking with Ben Baker about personal branding, and this is Inside Exec.